Hey, what's up, Rodney? It's me, Tito Puente Jr. I want you guys to tune in to the latest edition of the podcast, Drums and Rums, right here. Wepa!
Hey all, this is Paul from Drums and Rums with a Backbeats Meets the Spirits. Our guest is a Latin musician and percussionist and the son of jazz royalty. Welcome to the show, the son of the king of Latin music, Tito Puente Jr. How you doing, Tito?
Paul, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
This is great. Drums, rums, rum and drums, go all together.
I think that's exactly how you said when I saw you at the show in West Palm. You're like, I said, hey, do you do podcasts? Sure. Yeah. I said, how about Drums and Rums podcast? He goes, drums? I'll bring the drums and you bring the rums, which I did.
Yeah.
I did bring some rum.
That's right.
So there we go.
All
we got it all, right?
We
got drums, percussions.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let me just take a quick pause. I mean, again, those that are listening, watching, on the YouTube or audio podcast, I think most people that are in music knows your name, your family's name. I think that's fair to be said.
Sure.
Those that aren't music, this is what we're going to just talk about, Tito and I, that his passion, his family, his music, his father's music, I guess, is how he's bringing it and keeping the music alive for people that may not have been knowledgeable of how influential your father was.
Yeah.
Right.
Very much so. Yeah.
In today's music, I think you mentioned that in your show. Without this, so yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
My father was, of course, the king of Latin music, el rey de timbal, they say in Spanish, and king of timbales. Tito Puente, what can I say? I mean, a synonymous household name, passed away 24 years ago this year. And it's just amazing that his music still thrives, lives on through social media, through people dancing to his music, to people listening to his music, radio stations still playing it, going to concerts. And his name is still synonymous even to the present artists that are with us today, still recognize the music of Celia Cruz, Tito Puente, Fania All-Stars, those titans, those are the pioneers of this genre of music that we call Latin jazz music. And it's a big shoes to fill, but I continue his legacy. And I think my father's last name, or our last name, means bridge in Spanish, Puente. And that's what he did for 5 decades throughout his career, starting from the 1940s all the way through his 2000 to his unfortunate passing. And then from that point, starting in 2003, it took 3 years right there where I decided to start playing his music and continuing that bridge to the newer generations. And I've been doing it for 20 plus years now and bridging the new generation. So the kids today who are 20 years old or 21 years old, never got to see Tito Puente or maybe even heard of him. I'm kind of teaching them about that now. Right. And it's nice to see that they're really embracing that.
And what I loved about the event, and then we're going to probably go all over the place in the podcast. Sure. So, is to go back to that show. I had a great time. Okay. And the story is I saw the flyer, in the public elevator of the parking garage, but again,
typical Puente promotion.
But I mean, it was the West Palm Beach. Give a shout out to the West Palm Beach Jazz Society. I think that's to put it on, right?
Yes.
And I was looking in the elevator, and I said, I saw the picture real quickly. I saw somebody there in front of the timbales, and I said, who's this guy think he is? Tito Puente Jr. And then, of course, I looked a little bit to I said, oh, fuck, that is Tito Puente Jr. Before I'm like, I got to come back downtown. So I came to the show. I had a great time at the show. The energy, obviously, I think that's the same thing. You're embodying your father's energy. And, the videos, like I said, I didn't see him play, but obviously other than videos. Mm-hmm. But the energy of the show, it was great.
Didn't get a chance to see him play live?
Not live. Yeah, not live.
Not live. Okay, but you got to experience the whole, seeing it.
I love it
on television, movies, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about other things.
I lived in the era of Puente, which is good.
Yes. Okay. So let me just kind of step back again. Those and talk about your dad is that one is I think some people with the music, the Latin music is your Puerto Rican, and not Cuban or other. But again, I'm not saying that that matters. But again, those that don't know, it doesn't really matter. But a lot of people say, oh yeah, he's Cuban.
It does in the Hispanic world.
Yeah, we said we weren't going to talk about politics,
Yes.
right? Yeah, so let's get off of that real quick, but
It's not. It
yeah.
actually, I embraced that. My father was probably one of the only Puerto Rican musical band leaders that was Puerto Rican but promoted Afro-Cuban music. And he did that with pride. And he loved the Cuban sound. He loved the Afro-Cuban sound. He loved all the Cuban artists, all the great ones: Arsenio Rodriguez, Cachao Lopez, Generoso, Benny Moré. These were all his mentors. Machito, one of his great mentors, was the band leader at the 1930s and 40s that he looked up to. So my father really embraced. We always say he's Puerto Rican blood, but his heart beats like a Cuban. Yeah. And Tito Puente really embraced the Cuban, Afro-Cuban sound, which is what I told everybody at the concert, and what most people don't understand, that when you listen to salsa, as they call it today, or Latin music, it's really considered Afro-Cuban music. It's guanguanco, it's rumba, it's cha-cha-cha, it's son montuno. It's all a mishmash of that. And then the term salsa, of course, comes from our Dominican godfather, Mr. Johnny Pacheco, who created that whole sound of the 1970s with Fania. But prior to that, it was considered the dance style, mambo, cha-cha, rumba, but really it's Afro-Cuban music. And my father was really instrumental in promoting that around the world. And he took it around the world with he was the king, and there was a queen, and that was Celia Cruz, and she was a hardcore Cuban, and we love her, and we embrace her, but she really transcended the being Hispanic
right.
in general to all parts of the Latin music industry and Latin music world. So people kind of looked at Celia as the godmother of Afro-Cuban music. And reason being because she was dark-skinned, she was Cuban, and she really shined that light coming from her spirit, and the ways that she sang, they really resonated throughout the entire public. That includes American and European and Asian. They all understood that language, which was Afro-Cuban music,
right.
And that's what Tito Puente and Celia did.
And like you said, your translation of your last name, Bridge, right?
Bridge.
Bridging these.
Yeah, I kind of got picked up on that as I started playing my father's music, and Tito Bridge, little bridge, because in translation it means little bridge. Right. My father's name is Ernest Anthony Puente Jr. And he is the son of a immigrant worker, worked in a razor blade factory in Brooklyn, New York, Mr. Ernest Anthony Puente Sr. And he's laid to rest over here in South Florida, as a matter of fact. And my grandmother, my father's mother, Ercilia Ortiz Puente. And she is from Puerto Rico as well. They were both immigrants in Puerto Rico, moved to Brooklyn, New York back in the 1920s, early, like 1918, right in there. Right. And didn't speak a lick of English, but had my father in 1923. And then they moved to El Barrio, which is a real small section of Spanish Harlem. It's from 116th Street all the way down to 103rd. And it's really about a mile, a square mile each way, and it's predominantly Hispanic Puerto Ricans that lived there at that time, and it was mostly Irish also and German, so it was mixed. But that's where my father was born and raised, and then he wanted to really learn more about his craft and learn about playing music. My grandmother used to steal a quarter from my grandfather. And the story is that Grandma Celia used to tell my father to go get some piano lessons. And my father's first instrument was piano, which happens to be a percussion instrument. A lot of people don't know that. So that's where Tito Puente really honed in on his skills. And then, of course, he moved over to drum set. He was a big fan of Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich. He wanted to be those people. We all want to be those people. Right. As drummers today, we still want to be those people. Those were his mentors and his idols at that time, and thus becoming the king of Latin music.
And in the prep here, I was going through and his your father's history, and story, and again, what took me away, and again, for those that don't know, right, is look. He embodied the American dream here. Okay, let's kind of like, if we're getting the music is right, it's like World War II vet.
Yes.
Right. That's, so thank you for your service.
Thank you for acknowledging that. A lot of people don't know that. My father served in the U.S. Navy for in 9 battles for 3 years.
Drafted, I believe.
Drafted, correct, at the young, tender age of 17 years old. Right. So at that time, he was 16 was the draft, but he just made it to the 17th year, and he was drafted in 1941 and went to the war and had honorary discharge after he served. And then he got something that they called back then was the GI Bill. and that was the government didn't want to take you from your job if you were a young kid at that time and had a job at 15, 16, newspaper boy or whatever. They wanted to have that job back, and my father had a job with the Machito Orchestra. And when he got out of the military, he wanted to go get his job back in Machito. And the story is that Machito had a new drummer because Dad was hit the war, and Machito's new drummer had about 10 kids. So Dad didn't want to take his job away from him.
It's going to be a while.
And the child support that the guy needed. But and then he started his own band. But yes, thank you for acknowledging that. And a lot of people don't know, Tito Puente is a U.S. veteran. He was laid to rest with honorary veterans, 12-gun salute and all that. Right. It was quite something to see, which we didn't really know as we were growing up, me, my sisters, and my brothers, But when we saw that, we kind of really made sure that we wanted the fans and people to know that he was a World War vet. American dream.
Yeah. And I think some vets kind of see it, and like that's how my father was. He served in Vietnam, and he was also I'm a first gen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he came over from Scotland, and he served, and I don't think he quite was a citizen at the time, but he doesn't kind of dwell too much.
Was he born in Scotland?
He was born in Scotland.
He was born in Scotland. Tito Puente was born in New York.
Right.
But a lot of people thought that he was Cuban, but my dad's first language is English, New Yorker. You can tell by the accent. How are you? Yes. But yeah, that was really the American dream. But even if you came as an immigrant, that was my grandparents' dream as well, moving to New York and
better
getting
life,
the skill set of having the American dream and starting a family and all that.
And so, like as you mentioned, the GI Bill, and again, served this country. And then took the what the military or the government offered through the GI Bill, and went to Juilliard.
Ended up in Juilliard. And I was told at that time Juilliard was it still is even till today, you have to audition to get in that school. So you have to know some sort of musical or have some sort of musical background or talent. And Tito Puente, of course, was studying the Schillinger, I think it was called, method, which is a very intricate method of learning rhythmic sounds, Gregorian chants, just really deep stuff that you have to know to get into that particular, conservatory of music like that. But my father really wanted to get that going, and he got a full scholarship from that GI Bill. They paid for his schooling, and that's where he kind of honed in on his composition and arranging. And then he became thus the most sought after arranger at that time. He was working with other arrangers at the time, like Ray Santos and Silvestre Mendres and Francisco Aguabella. These were other writers and composers. But Puente, my dad's songs were really straightforward, big band swing. And remember, at that time, we didn't have pop music as we do today, or rock, or anything like that.
Right.
At that time, it was mostly jazz, a lot of blues, jazz, and big band swing music. The Cab Callaways and all that, and the Ella Fitzgeralds, the Duke Ellingtons, the Count Basies, all that. My father was really deep into those sounds, and you can hear that throughout his whole career through his music. But the school was very important that he went to Juilliard to hone in on those skills.
And going back to the performance there, seeing you look at live, right? And I'm like, man, I'm always a sucker for brass and horns. I'm like, it makes the music, but yeah, though that big band style, because it has there's so much energy. There's so much, obviously you got more music and musicians and so forth, but it's still good. I know it's around. It's not as in vogue, or again, I don't know, whatever the man tells us to listen to, right? I don't know,
at that time it was in fashion. But
yeah.
mambo music was kind of really in fashion and into the 1930s and 40s, as that Cuban sound was really coming into America, with the whole actresses were dressing up like Spanish actors and actresses at that time, Milta Silva and a lot of those other classic, Carmen Miranda, the I Love Lucy's, the Ricky Ricardos, all those were coming into play. So that's why mambo really got its real niche when it came into 1940s and 50s.
So, a little bit about their talking through, right, is some of the, again, they're in the 50s, and I just came back from Memphis a few weeks ago, and then, the Elvis angle, we went to Sun Studios, and again, it's like, just thinking at this time, it's like, in history, we know, well, this person was, alive at this point in time, and this person, this live, with like historic figures, and it's like thinking like, your father, Elvis, all these musicians, it's like, Jesus, man, it must have been a great time to be alive, but it just like today, the amount of music is so widely available, can reach so far than it did back then. It's like, I don't know if, you imagine being alive back then, knowing what you know now about music and how the accessibility to it.
Right.
So
right.
it's
very scarce back then. I've always have dreams of living at that era, or maybe reincarnated as Tito Puente from the 1950s. And I always thrive and strive to have in my concerts that generation to learn more about that style and dancing.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was. My father's music is dance music. At that time, it was considered dance mambo music.
So since you said that, let me jump here. Is this the quote? Do you know what quote I'm going to ask?
I don't know. My father had quite a few, and I have a few too.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, but you're talking about dance. Your father said, if there is no dance, there is not music.
That is correct.
So.
Yes, and that is a staple statement for anybody that's in the genre of salsa or Afro-Cuban music, and I can even go as far as saying in all genres of music that have a rhythm. Let's go into reggaeton, even rock music and pop music. You got to have some sort of underline of rhythm in there. The drums are that. And that's where it all comes from. It comes from the conga drum, the bongo, the timbal. It comes from all those instruments. Those are the instruments that get people on dance floors. Nobody dances on the floor to a violin or a clarinet, unless you're Kenny G. But that's where it's at. Yeah. You have to have the underlying tempo and rhythm of a drum in order for dancing. And that's all about timing. Dancing is timing. Timing is dancing. And my father was a dancer first before he became the musician.
He had a knee or injury that kind of prevented him to be a dancer.
Oh, God, there's so many stories.
Okay, all right, yeah.
I think, the final one that I kind of really, my father said it, and you guys can go on maybe YouTube or find it. He had a bicycle injury, and he was winning dance contests along with my aunt, Annie. She was a little bit older than my father, and they would do dance contests all around El Barrio in New York City, and they would win them. $50 here, $100 there, which is a lot of money back in the 1930s. That's like $1,000 today, or $2,000 or something like that. The story was that he got into a bicycle accident. He messed up his ankle, and then that's when Grandma said, "Stop dancing and start playing the piano." And that's when he got into the piano thing. But if you think about it, Tito Puente, when you watch Tito Puente in any solo that he's doing, he looks like a tap dancer playing with his hands. So if you think of a tap dancer, or any dancer for that matter, a really good one with timing and skill, Tito Puente's hands actually move like the feet of a dancer. And I kind of compare that.
That is perfect, because that's exactly, and again, as like musicians, right? Musicians always watch other musicians and their style or certain things. And I sat there and was watching you, and then even seeing the videos of your father, is just the movement of your guys' hands and the speed and how it looks so easy. And again, I know practice and
flawless.
But how quickly that they're moving and it's.
I scratch my head when I watch my father's solos, and I know I speak on behalf of a lot of drummers too. They're like, your father was amazing. He made it look so effortless, and he didn't break a sweat. And if he did, he was doing it, and he'd close his eyes, and he would feel the music, and you would see that, and you would connect that as a drummer to drummer. You feel that, like, man, what's he feeling in there? It's like almost like a quote unquote religious experience,
right?
Being possessed by this rhythm, and that's what Puente really shined a light on with his playing and his skill, and that's why we're so fascinated by him. The mystery of it all.
It's amazing. So a couple things there, going back to being recognized at so many different levels. A couple there is in '69 getting the keys to the city in New York, right? So does that pass down to you? Do you get to own the keys now, or how's that work out?
Pop used to say, "Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the key to the city. Where's the key to the bank?" The vaults, please.
Recognize.
Yes. Yeah, we have a lot of that memorabilia.
Yeah.
We kind of rotate it with the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. So if you want to see any Tito Puente memorabilia, definitely check that out. We're also trying to work on the International Salsa Museum in the Bronx, New York. We hopefully will get the funds for that to get that going. And of course, the Wolfsonian campus over here at FIU in South Florida, they have some memorabilia of Tito Puente as well. And there's a beautiful museum called the Musical Instrument Museum in Scottsdale, Arizona. You want to learn about Afro-Cuban music or any type of music, definitely check that out. There are Tito Puente timbales there, Celia Cruz's dress, stuff like that. And then you go to the Hard Rock cafes. You also got Tito Puente memorabilia in the Hard Rock Cafe over here in Hollywood, and one in Miami, and one in New York. So we rotate a lot of the stuff. So the keys you might see pass through your city one day. But yeah, we have all that.
So, and as you mentioned there, the Smithsonian, recognize the Smithsonian, National Congressional Record.
Yes.
Again, I think, if I remember this, right, the commemorative stamp, there was some things, right, being on the stamp, right? Yeah. The Google Doodle, remember that a couple of years ago? And that was kind of really cool. And then I think, probably the biggest one, being on The Simpsons.
I got to tell you, my father was so proud of being on the longest running animated series of all time, still even till today. And he was so excited, and it was one of the highest rated animated episodes, which was Who Shot Mr. Burns?
Yep.
And they thought it was little Maggie or whoever it was. And Tito Puente my father was really, really enamored and loved playing the fact that his voice is in there. He was a character in the show. And I think you have to be, like you said, the American dream is to, especially for a musician, is to have your music heard. But when you become a household name and become in The Simpsons, that's like Steven Tyler and, all the other celebrities that go through the system of being a household name. Tito Puente was right there with that. And my father was very taken back by that. And he knew how big the show was. And he said, man, I can't believe I'm on that show. And that's incredible, And that really came after the Mambo Kings. It came after all the television programs that he did. And it really culminated to that point. And we're still, to this day, are so proud of that. And it still is one of the highest rated animated episodes of that series. And wow, what can we say? We have photos and memorabilia from Dad being that character. I think we're going to send one of those to the Smithsonian in Washington, but that stuff's really we keep that in a vault as well, along with the other great things. But he was really, really proud and happy to be a part of that show, and forever be grateful. And you have to be really absolute superstar, Celine Dion rank, up there to be in that show. And they reached out to Tito Puente, and who better than for my father to play himself in there.
You made it when you're on The Simpsons.
You have to know that. I guess that's the talk about American dream. There it is.
I know. All right, so Matt Groening, I know you're watching, so let's let's get Junior on, right? We could set an episode. We could try shooting Mr. Burns again. It's been. I mean, how long The Simpsons been on? Like
longest running series has to be definitely
over 30 years.
30 seasons more, probably even more. They just keep coming back for more, and it doesn't stop. So Matt, love you. Yeah. Thank you.
And they can tell the future.
They can tell the future.
Prediction, a lot of predictions.
They can tell the future. That's incredible.
If we believe into all that. Just coincidences, right? Yeah. So, and let's see if I get this right, Tito. So, he's composed making more than 100 albums and creating more than 200 compositions. You talk a little bit about some of that.
I would go even further in saying there's probably, our last count was about 180 plus records. That includes compilations, being featured on other people's albums as well. We always forget that. Yeah. As far as his own catalog, he's definitely over 100, just himself. But being features and on different compilations, there's definitely over about, I could even go close to 200. They keep coming out. They keep releasing more and more unreleased material and things of that nature. A lot of the catalog also has outtakes. And these outtakes come out, so I always add those in there. A lot of cool stuff you hear my father speaking of. But composition-wise, definitely well over 200. I'm going to go, because there's a vault that we have in New York, and there's so much music in there, and I don't even have the time. I get intimidated when I walk in this vault. It's about the size of this room, and it's just paper. And it's just Tito Puente's handwritten notes. So I'm going to go in the mark of maybe over 500, maybe even close to 1,000, even more than that. As far as arrangements and adaptations, he has to be in the 8,000 mark in there. Because he took songs and he would transform them into Latin jazz. More so, the one that most people know was the Take 5. And Tito Puente did a rendition of that was in a Latin 3/4 time. How do you do take 5 and 3/4? Ask Tito Puente, and you can hear the actual version, and download it. But it's an incredible adaptation of songs, and he would take a lot of other people's songs, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and all the popular songs, and he would make adaptations of those. Girl from Ipanema, Ipanema was one of the famous ones. He did a Latin jazz version of that. Bamboleo from the Gypsy Kings. He turned it into, a very mambo-ish version. So adaptation-wise, probably in several thousands. Composition-wise, he's up there in the thousands too as well. How do you get so much creativity from a man like that who had a piano in front of him and noise and kids running around the house? I don't know. I still scratch my head and I try to find my inspiration with me,
right?
And I can't do it. I don't know how my father did it. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So, you talked about obviously the impacts or influence on musicians today, like you talked about at the show, and again, you get a chance, you got to go and see Tito and perform the music. I love that, you take the moment, you tell a little bit of the story. I think that's, storytelling in music, is because people get, it's like, oh, this is what this is from. This is what this song's about, or at least this is how. I think it was just great, right? Again, I'm still gushing about. Like I said, I really enjoyed that evening. I'm like, it was great. I think I may have gotten up and danced. I don't know if there's video of that at all.
I just wanted to go on what you just said. Yeah. When you do come to my concerts, I try to educate everybody on each song when I perform it, and I kind of give a little bit of synopsis of the tune and when it was written, and I'll crack a joke here and there because my father had that sense of humor. But I think it's an educational show too as well. So I'll have a screen behind me. I'll describe what they're watching and what they're seeing and what they're hearing, and I'll teach people a little bit about clave, cha 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 cha. You got to teach the the young. They don't understand that. Everybody knows the 2/4 time and the metronome. Right, that's it, yeah. So you got to teach them the 2/3 and 2/3/2 clave, and so I give it more like an educational experience when you come to the show. The other day, I went to a concert. I won't say the name of the rock band, but I went to go see a rock band, and I love heavy metal and rock music, and I told you that on a side note. And when I go to these concerts, I'm listening to nostalgic music. So it's songs from like the 80s and 90s. Man, I love that tune, and that was one of my favorites, and it was on the radio. And what I noticed is that they do medleys. They do one song, and dang, boom, the song is over, lights go out, fans are, and then the next song comes in. Oh, I recognize that one. I wanted to see, I hope that the bands that are listening or watch try to give a little synopsis of the next song. And it kind of like engaging, because like when I saw the band, they did that in between two songs. And they're like, this song was written and composed and back in 1986, which is my favorite year. And it was recorded in this studio, and let me tell you, we were having a great old time that night, and we were drunk, and it gives it a nostalgic feeling. Yeah. Like, man, I can only imagine what it was like being in the studio at that time in the recording. We did it in 3 takes, and it became a worldwide hit. So that is like a little history of the song that you're about to hear, and I hope that in the future that most concerts that we go to give that educational aspect. I don't know if that's really educational, but to me, it's nostalgic enough to say, man, they did it in 3 takes. They're a very talented band. So
it's very talented, especially if they were all drinking too, right? You're on something. Exactly. That's really talented,
Yeah, but I always feel like concerts like that, I get more, I guess as a musician and drummer to drummer, we find that to be more engaging.
Well, it's the creative aspect, right? You can write a song and create music, but then trying to explain, like how many songs are out there. People always wondering, Carly Simon's song, like, well, who's she really talking about in your, in vain, right? Like, but
give us the answer, Carly.
Right,
Stop the story. It's been 40 years since you've been singing that, and we want to know. Like, Stevie Nicks, who are you talking about?
Right, yeah. We think we know
you've been telling this guy to stand back for all these years. Who was it? Was it, was it the guitar player?
So I seeing a lot of music, we were about fairly close to the same age, and, growing up and, up north, and, a lot of the, the hair metal, I guess that's the genre, at least most of the time. And that's kind of where, because of my lack of, we grew up pre-internet, like I said earlier, right? Exposed to certain music, and depending on where you live or maybe your cultural, is you're not going to be exposed to certain music. And, that was a lot for me. I was definitely more of a rock guy. And until I went to Nashville and kind of say, oh, okay, this is country, and seeing all these musicians. And, okay, the musicians that are in these country bands, they're like, nobody even, you could pass them in Walmart and you would never even know who. I was like, oh, that guy's in this band. It's the guys up front. Or like when I was in Memphis, I was just talking earlier, the blues stuff. It's a very similar thing. And the storytelling. Now, I did see the Roots play at Sunfest here in West Palm. And Prince had just passed, and the Roots did not break. They just went right in, and so forth.
Well,
right?
they're talented guys. Questlove, amazing drummer, hands down. And I wish I remember they were at Sunfest.
Yeah.
I missed that day because it's a 3-day event.
Yep.
But I remember that the Roots did play, but when they do a medleys, they're doing a medley of great songs.
Yeah, I think because when Prince passed, they did a medley of Prince's music, and people went fucking ape shit.
Absolutely,
absolutely. And so
that creative part I love when I see a band really tributing someone like Prince. I mean, God, I think we just saw a recent documentary too, that We Are the World one, and it was amazing seeing that. And everybody really wanted to do something that was unified, but then you look at all the artists like, wow, each one of them has a special talent, and they have their own separate shows too. And it's great to see that, and everybody has their stories. I think my father's was unique in the way that when you hear his music, it is already nostalgic because it's from the 1940s and 50s. It made people dance. That's usually my problem too when I'm performing live. I'm either when I'm with my wife and I'm in a dance room and people are dancing and I'll try to explain the song, but nobody's listening. She'll be like, why don't you shut the fuck up and just play the next song? And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. Nobody's listening to me. But if you're in a theater format or a performing arts center, then that's more of I can get more people's attention in that aspect.
And again, maybe it was that setting in the West Palm show was just right. It was intimate enough. I feel like, man, he's this close in that perspective. How
songs are the art of storytelling, just with music behind it. It's exactly what they are, and that's what most of the lyrics also, with Tito Puente's lyrics with regard to them, mostly of them are just up tempo tunes. There's nothing really, like plasmatic about it. Like, wow, oye como va? Okay, very practical song, very easy to speak. Connects with everybody. It's a song. It's a what do you call it? Repeat and response. Call and response tune. And Mambo Go Song and Ran Can Can, the sound of the drum. A lot of the lyrics that my father wrote were, practical. But what made them so unique was the horn section, the Afro-Cuban sound under it, the big band behind it, the connection of all three worlds, and that's what makes them so memorable.
Right. It's
cool stuff, man.
It's And again, the show there is, again, being a percussionist and drummer, it's like, yeah, look, that was what's on the stage here. I think I counted. I'm like, well, all right, so you got keys, you got the piano.
Yeah.
Okay, that's percussion. All right, you got the drum kit player, you got you, and you got a couple of other guys.
Guido,
I'm like,
clave, all that.
So I do another show called Riffs and Rhythms, and there's always the debate over what makes the song. Is it the riff or the rhythm? So again, so this would be the rhythm. Yes,
that should be in a ring. I'll fight a couple of guitar players, man. Riffs and rhythms.
That's it. Yeah. So
I love that. That's a good concept.
So it's I got a guitar friend of mine, Kevin McLaughlin. He performs up in the Treasure Coast area there in West Palm, and so we sit there, and again, a drummer and a guitarist, go back and forth, and we took some live reactions on Beale Street, and was asking, and the majority of people were saying, drums, were make one girl said the bottom end, and I says, I love it. Yes, I love a good bottom end.
Let's be truly honest, Paul. Bass players are frustrated drummers. Drummers are frustrated bass players. I say that to everybody. And as a drummer, you understand that we all wanted to play bass.
You are, you and your dad are like, you guys are the heroes of drummers and percussionists, because look, most drummers sit behind and have to stare at the ass of the lead singer. Now, hopefully it's a nice looking ass, I guess, but we're usually stuck behind and nobody sees us.
Yeah.
You guys bring it right out front.
Yeah.
Hey, the drummers are here, up front, right here.
I see so many memes of lead singers after they leave the show. They're in the limo, and we're over there breaking down the kit. Yeah. My wife always sees me wearing gloves at the end of the night, and I'm first one to get there, last one to leave. But you have to embrace that in order to be a percussion player.
Well, I got to give a shout out there to the guy behind the camera there, Brad from Jams and Cocktails. There, he is a one-man band. He plays guitar.
Love that.
He plays drums. He's got a whole setup. He plays with his feet.
He's multifaceted.
Yes.
Jack of all trades. See, I like that. I like that. And I probably know how to do keyboard and everything. See,
he's got a little.
See that to me is I find that to be very fascinating to watch a drummer play guitar and different instruments. My buddy Gamirey does that. He does that. He plays all kinds of different instruments.
So a shout out to you. Thank you for the studio time here today. And
Gamirey Music over here.
Right, yes.
And what is this? Hialeah? The Miami Lakes. We're going to show some respect to this place, Miami Lakes.
So I want to talk a little bit more about some of your stuff. A little bit about from your perspective. Obviously growing up. But let's. Do we want to first stop and have a little bit of something to enjoy?
Sure.
All right. So let's go ahead and we'll bust that out.
Oh, what does it say? It says Miami Rum Festival.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is called Rums and Drums.
So this is this is some couple glasses here from the Miami Rum Renaissance Festival. A little shout out there is Rob and Robin Burr. They live here in South Florida, South Miami. They put on this event. I think it's in its 14th, 15th year.
Oh, okay, cool.
So they have a lot of rum companies come in. You learn a little bit about rum, and it's usually in November. So then check that out there and so forth. So what we have here, Tito, is this is from one of our guests. Right, I was at last year's Miami Rum Congress. Is another rum event, and this is Holmes Key. It's from Belize, so definitely want to give a shout out to Eric K and
13 year.
Yes,
so it's aged.
It's aged, yes.
All right,
and
cask.
It's got a little heat on it. It's gonna have a little heat on it. So he's a musician also, and he told me when we did this episode, he goes, you know what? You bought the bottle. You do whatever you want with it. You want to mix it with whatever it may be, whatever. And so this is I got my glasses on there. 61% alcohol by volume. It's got a little heat on it. So cheers.
Well,
That's fine.
I'm gonna hold off on this because I'll probably end up choking to death, and I don't want to do that on camera. But I have it with my hot sauce.
There you go. Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yes.
Well, yeah, man. This is great stuff. My father, just so you guys know, was a drinking man too, and his thing was rum and cokes. I guess that's like the typical drink of South Florida, Cuba Libre they call it. But he would also like cranberry juice and vodka. That was his kind of drink too. He liked things that were fruity. Very fruity drinks and stuff like that. He wasn't really like the bourbon guy or anything of that nature, but he liked the more the fruity drinks. And I guess but what was amazing about Tito Puente was that he didn't drink or anything before the show. He kind of just focused in on his concerts. Afterwards, forget it. You wouldn't find him. I would be the one picking him up off the bar. but before the show, you'd be very disciplined when it comes to that. And I appreciated that about my father. And I think that comes from the military.
Okay.
And it came from his military experience. And
it takes what he's doing serious.
Yeah.
Right. And how many you can go to a bar, see a bar band have been, slinging back and it's like, and as a drummer, let alone how to try to keep your rhythm and
it gets kind of tough. I always wonder like how Tommy Lee did it. Back in the 80s with Motley Crue or, these guys drinking Fitz
I think we
Jack
gave a lot of those
Daniels.
bands a lot of pass. Let's be honest,
We've
right?
given them a lot of passes. Yes, we have.
Yes.
We have. We've seen them live. The recordings have been a lot of takes, I can only imagine. But, kudos to all those guys who are still playing.
Yeah.
I look up to those rock bands, the Iron Maidens, the Def Leppards, the Metallica. I mean, those bands are the ones that went through that whole 80s, rock phase, and they're still here today, and they become the biggest icons ever.
It's crazy to think about some of those bands that are still performing. Well, let alone too. It seems like over the last year, a lot of older bands, musicians have come out and have got bangers.
Hell yeah.
I mean, the Rolling Stone album. I mean, come on. I'm like, those old fuckers,
I saw Mick
and they're
Jagger
still, yeah.
running. He had heart surgery, running across a stage in a stadium here. I think it was last year, or the year before, like a week after he got out of heart surgery.
Yeah, now you make me feel bad, right? Here's this old guy, and I'm kind of, I get a little winded walking up the stairs, So
amazing to see that, and kudos to those. And I look back and I think of my father. He worked all the way to the ripe age of 77 years old. And Tito Puente was just disciplined like that. He still had his speed, his agility, his mind, all that, all the way to the very end. And hopefully I can, teach my children and my kids, to take after what their grandfather did, to keep that tradition going.
Right. And speaking, right, your son, right?
Yeah.
You had him at the show, right?
Yeah, but my son. Yeah, that's right. Little Tito Puente Jr. He's just going to about turn 16, as a matter of fact. Is he into music? Everybody asks me, does he play? Does he play? He's a writer. He writes a lot of music. He's getting into the piano. So I'm kind of thinking like Grandma Celia, the way she did it. So I bought him a piano for his birthday, and he's kind of getting into that. And my father always taught me, and I'll quote him, surround yourself with creative people, thus you will be creative. So I want my son to be around other musicians. And I think that's what he should be doing now, is joining bands and working with other musicians. That's how I did it, too, when I was growing up. I hung out with bass players and guitar players and harp players, all kinds of players. And I joined the school band. And, I love drumline, and that's what I really liked doing. That was really a camaraderie thing. Being a musician is a camaraderie thing. We can hang out all night and talk forever and burn these mics to the ground. But it's being a musician, the camaraderie of being around other talented people, is really the special thing. My band here in South Florida, they know, when we get together, it's all about, did you see this guy playing, that guy playing? That's all we talk about. It's just music. There isn't anything like, and by the way, how's your wife? Well, anyway, Kako was just here, and he just jammed out the other day. We go right back into talking about music, and that's the camaraderie of being a musician.
Yeah, that's right. It's what we're kind of wired.
I think my father really embraced that with his orchestra. That's why he worked with them for so many years, 30 plus years, 40 plus years, same musicians always. And I think I do that with my musicians too. I work with these guys for about 20 plus years since I've been playing.
It is no different than the genre of music. You've got to.
No, we've been playing the same fucking
right?
songs for 20 years, and we still are like amazed at the sound of the songs, and we change them up, and we never do the same solos, and it's amazing. And I think back to how my father really transcended all of his orchestras throughout the decades. Music changes, it does, but Puente always stayed steadfast on keeping that big band swing Latin jazz sound, and he never changed his sound, and he won 3 Grammys before his passing. So that goes to show that his music started in the 50s and it never changed. And, if you stay on a style, you're going to do well. That proven with Iron Maiden, Metallica, and all these other bands who come out with new music.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of that, was kind of a good segue. I was wanting to ask you about. It was like, all right, so, all this is going on, your father's had a very, very big career up to this point, when when you were a kid and growing up. At what point do you remember that? Again, he's your dad. So to him, he's your dad. But then you kind of take a step outside of that and say, "Oh, this is my."
Get that question. I get that question numerous times, and I think it would be the poignant moment where I knew that he was super popular or who he was. I always knew my father was a musician. I understood that. I think it was probably between the ages of 8 and 10, right in there, maybe 9. We went to a band. We went to Madison Square Garden in New York, and we saw a band called Menudo. Very, very extremely popular Puerto Rican boy band. And in the 80s, or just must have been 1981, 82, somewhere in there, we went to Madison Square Garden. My sister was a big fan. Shouts out to my sister, which still got her Ricky Martin poster on her wall, I think. And we went to the concert. I didn't care to it, but I said, man, I want to be one of those guys because they get all these girls. An 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, you see screaming girls. Yeah, I want to do that. So I went to the concert with my father, and what was amazing about it is that we were kind of in the front row there. And Menudo stopped the concert, about 18,000 screaming girls, and said, con ustedes, in Spanish, aquí estamos el maestro Tito Puente. Están aquí con nosotros, which means Tito Puente is in the audience. All the lights went on us. Me and my sister and my dad and my mom were all sitting there, and they're all screaming for Tito, Tito. And at that point was really when I kind of knew wow, why are they chanting for this gray hair old guy who farts in the morning, and I have to, clean his toilet and all this shit, I don't get it. And that's really like the moment where it transcended. I said, my father's extremely popular. And then he would look at me like, you know who I am? And I go, yeah, here's another toilet roll.
Get back into cleaning.
Yeah. So that was really the moment. And then from there, I got to tell you, I'll be straight up and honest. And I don't care if any son or daughter of a famous person tells you that they didn't feel pressure. They felt pressure. We all did. All of us. Including the sons of the musicians that were in my father's band too, because we all grew up together at the same time. So my father would travel with the bongo players, and the bongo player's son would be my friend, and we'd all be related, including the record executives and all that. So there was always pressure there. Can we replace our parents? Can we duplicate our parents? The word was nepotism. We felt that. That. And now, me at the age of 52, I can now acknowledge that feeling and understand it a lot more, because I feel that with my children, I don't want my children to feel that pressure when I'm performing. So I make them feel very comfortable. Man, get up there and do what you want to do. No, I'm not looking at you side eye or crooked eye. And my father kind of did the same thing. He handed me maracas, play on the side. If he would tell me, hey, you got to shake them up a little bit this way and play the bell, get a little rhythm going. I would take that, and it would be constructive criticism, and then I would learn from that. But there was pressure, especially going and performing his music. A lot of comparison. Are you Tito Puente's son? You should play just like your father, or even better. And what I notice is that the musicians that I surround myself with, they appreciate who I am first before my musicianship. They're like, man, we respect the fact that you're even challenging to attempt to play Tito Puente music.
Right.
And you're embracing that, and you're bridging a new generation to that. So when you come to my concerts, you're not going to see this spectacular, man of like my father was, the speed, the agility, all that. You're going to see me just interpret my father's music and present it the way I see fit, so that way people can understand it, the newer generation can understand it. And that pressure kind of eases off on you as you get older. Now that my hands are getting a little arthritis and all that, and I feel a little, heaviness on my back, pains. I'm standing up doing my job, but I've learned to embrace it and understand it a lot more. But it is a little pressureful for a teenager to understand that you're Frank Sinatra's son. You're singing your father's stuff,
right?
And I'm sure Frank Jr. felt that. I always tell everybody, I'm not Enrique Iglesias. Which is he sings completely different than his dad, but they are one in the same. The talent comes from not too far from the tree there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and that was something. Yeah, I was want to ask you was growing up. Growing up and around. Like I said, once you've 8, 10 years old, there, realizing, connecting, somebody else's that is popular, famous on a stage, recognizing your old man, and it kind of hitting. Sure. But then also growing up, as you mentioned, right, was mostly with the band, mostly with some of these people or people that another name outside of your circle or family say, oh, well, so-and-so just showed up to our house, or and you're like, holy shit, or it was just a normal thing, It
was a normal thing. Carlos Santana would call, and, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would call, and Celia Cruz would come over our house, and all the big Latin stars that you know today would come over, and Mark Anthony was our very good, still my good friend, and so it was kind of the norm.
Yeah,
it was the norm, but the pressure was there, and I think my sister didn't feel as much as I did, simply because I played music, and it wasn't predominantly mambo music. I was playing rock music at the time. I was a trap kit drummer first.
Okay.
And that's what I still continue to love. Double bass, heavy metal, death metal, all that. I play mambo music because I feel that it's my proper duty to challenge the generation of today to understand and not forget who my father was, because of the impact that he left. But you'll see me in the front row at a Motley Crue concert, right. And again, that pressure's there. So if any young kid that's out there feeling that, it will eventually fall off. and you become your own. Especially that happens a lot with actors. You know, you see Drew Barrymore, her father was amazing. She became her own.
Yep.
You know, and you got to find your own niche.
Yeah.
And find your own skill set.
And I think you kind of you touched on it, is that you become okay with that, your own skin, but knowing you have these other things.
I've become more of a teacher and a tool, or to bridge the generations.
Right.
That's where I've come to terms with myself. I'm not that. I wanted to be Tommy Lee. Right. Everybody wants a fucking 20-inch schlong and the best girl in the fucking business, but we all couldn't get it. Okay, so
I'm just gonna get better at drums because I'm not.
I got the things that I felt in my world were conducive to what I feel as a Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
So I'm playing timbales, and I got the hottest girl in the world, and then I have a little schlong.
I'm not
there
sure.
You go.
Can't
have it all.
I'm not sure what clip-worthy clips, clips from this episode.
There you go. I'm being modest, guys.
So,
the fucking rum is running on me here.
So, maybe we had to have your wife on the podcast.
She'll tell me like she does before in the show. Shut the fuck up.
So it helps keep you in your place and keep your level.
It keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
It keeps me grounded, and my kids do too. And I love that about that. And I think that's part of growing, growing as a musician and growing and becoming Tito Puente Jr. And those of you might not know as well too. That's my actual name. A lot of people are like, well, isn't your name like, Robert Jr. or something like that? My father's name is Ernest Anthony Puente Jr., and they call him Tito because Tito is a derivative of something small in Spanish. Chiquito, poquito. Tito, my father was vertically challenged, so he was only like 4'10", 5 feet tall, so he wasn't a tall person. And in the streets of New York at that time, there was no internet, no phones or anything like that, and there was telephone was just kind of invented, really. And being poor, and in Spanish Harlem, my grandmother used to yell out the window, Ernestito, Ernestito. And the kids would hear the end part of the word, Tito, your mother's calling you. So that's where he got the nickname.
It stuck.
And that became his stage moniker. And then he named me Tito Puente. So every time I get pulled over by a cop, they're like, bullshit. I'm like, no, that's me.
Does it happen often?
No, it does not happen often. But no, when let's say I go through TSA, they're always asking me, "No shit, are you really? Are you related?" And I get that a lot. But I've embraced that, and it bothered me at the beginning. It really did. It did, and I'm sure it does for a lot of famous young talents,
kind of like being
that.
in the shadow of
you're being in the shadow, and it bothered me, especially when I was next to him. That's when it really irked me the most, because I was like. They would ask him a question, and he would acknowledge me and say, "Yeah, this is my son." And then the questions would come at me, and I'd be like, "Well, what do you do?" And I would be like, I would be a sarcastic ass. And I'd be like, "He just fucking told you I'm his son. That's what I do. I'm his son. Am I supposed to do anything? I cater to him.
Whatever he wants.
I drive my father around." They're asking this. They're asking this at 16 years old, 17.
Right.
So I have my license. I'm like, yeah, I fucking drive this old man around. That's it. And they would laugh, and I try to knock it out. But it did bother me at the time. Now, I can only imagine what my son feels.
Careful what you.
Because they ask me, "Is this your son?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't ask him no questions."
Yeah.
But he answers the same way. He's
funny.
hilarious like that.
So talking about the album you released, right? The King and I.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. The album's incredible. I wanted to do something for my father's 20th anniversary of his passing, and I wanted to do something that was related to all the artists that he's performed with through the 20 plus years that I've seen my father, from the 80s into the 90s and even into the 70s, since I was born in 71. I wanted to get a bunch of artists that he worked with directly in the studio that he had on his albums. So the creation came through my wife, her idea, and along with my producer Marlo Rosado and my buddy here, Gamirey. We said, let's pick out, you got over 1,000, 2,000 arrangements. What songs do we do? He's got so many hits. So we cherry picked a few of them, and we said, let's pick out the ones that are really strong and that can make people dance, and let's try to get the original artist on those particular songs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we did, and I got the great Sheila E., her father Pete Escovedo on the album, Domingo Quiñones, Michael Stewart, Jose Alberto Canario, El Meñique, who was one of my father's first singers back in the 1970s. So there were so many artists that participated in the record. I was very proud of it, and we released it. It's called The King and I, and check it out. And we got a music video out there. It's called 20 Años, and we actually took. This is a great idea that Marlo and Gama came up with. They said, why don't we take an old reel-to-reel of your father and a solo of him and fly it into the song? Kind of like what Nat King Cole did with Natalie King Cole.
Okay, yeah.
So we said, yeah, let's do that, and we could do a video of that. So we did that with the song 20 Años. It's an original tune, and we took some timbal solo of Tito Puente. We threw it in the song, flew it in there, and it matched perfectly. So it's me and my father kind of like dueling timbales. And it's a really heartfelt album. I love it. It's been pushing me for about the past couple of years now.
It's right here.
That's it right there. That's it right there. And this is a compact disc, folks. I know you don't know what this is. But this is a CD. And again, we did all the hits. Oye, como va, Rancancan Picadillo, El Rey de Timbal. And what I loved about, I got my brother Ronnie on here too. First time I ever recorded with my brother Ronnie. He's from my dad's first marriage, older brother Ronnie. Yeah. And he's an avid and amazing vibraphone player and percussion player as well. He didn't pursue music as I thought he could have, but he is an excellent performer, and he arranges too, and he's just fantastic all around, and he's a very big inspiration in my life, just understanding on who I am, being the son of Tito Puente, right. And where this goes. But what's great about the album too also is that I didn't feel, again, that pressure came into play. Like, I'm playing songs that are really hard, and my skill set, I don't think I can come up to par to the original versions, especially with the timbal solos. In El Rey de Timbal para los Rumberos, those songs are very, very conducive to Tito Puente playing fast, speed, triplets, paradiddles, 7-stroke rolls with precision on the bell, on the low timbale and the front timbale. And my musicians really inspired me to do it. They're like, we're going to do it in takes. You can do this. Practice. Do it over and over and over again. And Gama's one of those cats that was right here. I recorded half this album, most of the solos on it. And it was frustrating for me. And he saw it. And he's like, why don't you take a break? Just relax. Chill out. Come back in when you're ready. You can do it. And I think that's what was missing for most of my younger years. I said, man, you can do it. You can do it. My father didn't give me that encouragement. He said, you got to go to school. You got to learn. And I'm glad that he did that, because it gave me that feeling of saying, hey, I got to do this myself. And having that encouragement, I got to find it somewhere. And I found it through my musicians and playing his music. And that's why I got to the completion of the record. I couldn't do it without them, and they really pushed me. They pushed me, and I'm glad that they did. Yeah. And even till today, now I go up on stage and I said, man, I don't know if I could do that solo. And I think of when I was in the studio, I said, man, yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of element of that and add my own little spice to it. But the record's out. Check it out. It's on all digital platforms. You can get it on Amazon.com. And I also, I got it with a bundle pack with this T-shirt, Tito Puente. This is the Centennial T-shirt that we released. I don't know if you guys can see it.
So there you go.
And the back of it too. So we just ordered a bunch of these. You can order online. You go to Tito Puente Jr. Hot.com. It's a hot sauce we got. We got 4 different flavors, by the way. This is mango maple syrup, real hot stuff. We got Carolina Reaper. I know you like the hot stuff, Paul. You like the hot rum? There's the hot food. And by the way, you guys over there at Jams and Cocktails, I love this stuff too. All right, 'cause this is good stuff you can put in a Bloody Mary. This one's got guava. It's called Rancancan sauce. I named them after Tito Puente songs. Okay. Mambo Diablo. This one's Tito Tamarindo, sweet taste of fruit. And, of course, Puente Caliente sauce, green pepper, sweet green pepper, habanero peppers. Excellent on breakfast, lunch, dinner. Pork, steak, beef, chicken, whatever. Rice, beans. It's good on everything. So pick yours up.
I have a feeling it sounds without you saying it, you're hungry. You need to say lunch. Is it lunchtime?
That's my infomercial. And by By the way, you saw I just dropped that, so they are in plastic bottles. So don't feel scared; they're not in glass bottles.
Well, and I picked up. After the show, there picked up the bottles there. They got the CD, so definitely we were listening to it on the way down from West Palm, and the sauces are great.
Thanks.
Trying it on and so forth. And I've over the years, I've gradually. My wife's originally from New Mexico, and when
Best
I
place
first
for hot sauces, peppers,
Hatch Chili's,
Albuquerque,
more eastern, closer to Lubbock.
Oh, Lubbock,
yeah,
okay,
area.
yeah.
So she's in Clovis, New Mexico, and growing up. And when
Pepperland.
So when I went to visit her family the first time, her nieces are like eating salsa, and I'm like, yeah, I've been kind of building up my salsa, and I went and dug right in there. I'm like, and I'm like, can I get some milk here? I wasn't quite. I'm still, again, I
thought it was a clever idea. My wife came up with the idea too. She's like, why don't you add something? We actually recorded it during the pandemic, and I came here, and Gama was in the other room, and I couldn't shake his hand or anything. He had a mask on. I'm like, all right, I'm on this side of the wall, and we recorded it remotely. So we had Sheila's solos done in San Francisco, where she was living at the time. Actually, she was in L.A. Pardon me, she was in L.A. And then we recorded in Puerto Rico too. I got our singers from Puerto Rico. Recorded some people. My brother in New York. So we recorded.
It's
everywhere.
Amazing now, right?
Yeah, you could get everybody in one place.
Well, I don't know. Let me ask you this then. Since you're talking about that, is because the pandemic forced a lot of people to do a lot of different things and so forth. And like once the return to work, return to the office happened, there was still that vibe, and still a lot of people feel like you missing something being in person.
Yeah.
I guess it was not a necessity, right? You had to do. I guess you could have waited.
Extremely.
But again, we didn't know when the pandemic was going to ever be over, right? And I started the pandemic, got 2 episodes in, and then lockdown happened. I'm like, how do I do a podcast about talking music and drinking? It's a drinking.
Then came Zoom. Then came Zoom.
Right. And but yeah, it's amazing the technology now that you can sit here, record, drop a track, send it out, mix it in, do all these things. But you lose
Not
a little.
used to that.
But you lose a little being in the studio, right?
Absolutely.
It's a vibe. It's a thing.
I told Gama when we were recording, I was like, this sucks. This sucks, man. I don't like this at all. Because Gama and I and a lot of musicians, my father's been recording with musicians in the studio in one room some of his best albums. And they had a bottle of rum in the middle, and they were all drinking it. And those are the best, off the cuff, straight solos.
You could tell it's
improvisations.
Authentic. It's so
It was real. And my next album, I plan on doing that, bringing everybody in one room. We're going to do this in a couple of rehearsals, and then I'm not even going to record the rehearsals because I like the outtakes too. You don't know what you'll find.
Right.
Magic.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can get that going in 2024.
All right. Excellent.
Something new like that.
So we have a slogan that we came up with on the riffs and rhythms there. Kevin McLaughlin came up with 2024, the year of more.
Year of more. I like that. 2024, the year of more.
There you go.
That's right.
So
I would hope that more people listen to Tito Puente music. More people will get into going to live shows. I think that's really key too. I'm seeing a lot of concerts, a lot of live shows. I got some big concerts happening this year. I didn't think that I would be in that echelon of working with or sharing the stage with Seal and Sting and Incubus and ZZ Top, which I'm going to do in May, or going to Australia, and we're going to Hawaii now and doing a big stint over there. And I never thought that I would be in that place after the pandemic. It's after 2020. We were all musicians were like, well, we don't know where we're going.
Hey, do you need a hype man? Do you need anybody?
Yeah,
in your
my
crew,
musicians
man?
get mad when I leave them home too. They're like, "Hey, where are you taking me?" Look, he's giving me a dirty look right now because these guys traveled around the world with me, and they're like, "Man, we had fun." They took them to Spain and Japan and everywhere, and so now it's like it's coming back. But I hope that more people go out and see live music and live shows. And for God's sake, Ticketmaster, take it easy on these ticket prices. These kids are just paying out their butt, and then they can't pay their rent.
It's
amazing. I think there's enough to go around, and good live music you can get at a reasonable price. Without going to these festivals and shelling out 3 mortgage payments. I think it's a little extreme, and it's a little money hungry for some of these artists to be doing that. If you come to one of my concerts, it's reasonably priced. You're going to get 2 hours of solid music, and you're going to dance, and you're going to go home with a great memory of some nostalgic music.
I think I paid like $25 or something like that.
Nice and easy,
something.
Man.
It was like
nice and easy. I always tell my booking agents and all that. I see ticket prices at $100, $200. I'm like, no, man, it's not going to work. That's not going to to work. My fans are very reasonable, and they will pay X amount, and I try to keep it at that price point. And I think that's what's missing a lot in
don't disagree,
live music.
Don't disagree, and it's not a knock. It's just maybe the way things are at now is like
Inflation.
I always want to go to see Rod Stewart's going to be at the Hard Rock,
Sure.
Valentine's Day, right? I'm
Brutal.
like, all right, okay, he's up there. Maybe it's one of those bucket list. Check it off. It would be great, like a lot of the '80s bands. If you missed an '80s band back then, it's really difficult to go see them today. Because they're not the same level, and you're paying a lot more.
Yes.
So I never saw Motley Crue live, but I cannot go and see Motley Crue today.
Right.
I
can't see Motley Crue either.
Yeah.
I did say I'll sit in the front row, but it'll probably be in my front row of my phone. But yeah, I always tell somebody, hey, do a Facebook Live, and I'll just watch.
So the price, some of those prices,
some of the prices are up there. But as I travel and I go around the world, I see more faces, new generation, new dancers, people who love my father, who are fans of Tito Puente, bringing their grandchildren. I'm teaching them, bringing them up on stage, learning about the clave rhythms. It's a whole educational process, entertaining. I promise you guys, if you guys come to one of my concerts, Paul, you experience it yourself. And then after the show, I say hello to everybody. And at the way end of the show, my wife says, give me the check and shut the fuck up.
Let's go.
In that order. There it is.
How long you can talk to everybody? You did, right? In fair, I'm like, you walked off the stage there, went right to the front, right there, and
I stayed
took pictures of people. Talked to this idiot.
And she's putting on the face.
I know, she's like, another person. No,
you did. You came to that one.
So.
You came to Palm Beach. You didn't. I went with Antonio. Yeah, it was just me and Antonio. That's right. Okay.
But and then I know there was I think this is more of maybe a little bit of a private event or something coming up in on your father's birthday, actually, right? April 20th.
Yeah, we're doing a bunch of different dates coming up soon. Something in Palm Beach, some private events that we're doing over there for some fundraising efforts. We have a big show happening on March 9th at the City of Hollywood, where we're going to have a nice tribute to Tito Puente, which we couldn't do last year due to weather. It was in October. It was a hurricane season, and the rain came through. So we had to push it towards the day before Calle Ocho, which is one of the largest Spanish street festivals in the southeast of the United States. So we will be doing something at the in Hollywood Young Circle. In Hollywood, Florida. You're invited to come. The whole crew is. And it's a free concert. And we will have the full orchestra there. We're going to have about 13 pieces up there with the big band, and we're going to have some great singers up there. We've got Michael Stewart, Frankie Negron, just some great salsa singers, and it's going to be a beautiful day. Timbala is performing. There are many other bands and DJs, and it's all free, and it's for the public, and I want you to bring the kids and bring the family, bring grandma, grandpa. I think they could bring the dog there. I think there's a dog park. And that's going to be on March 9th. And then, of course, we go over to Cinco de Mayo over with Sting and ZZ Top over there in California, Redondo Beach. And there's so many. And then we'll be in the Bronx, New York, doing the same tribute concert on with Andy Montañez, very godfather of salsa, they call him, in March on March 2nd. So all that you can find on my social media at Tito Puente Jr. on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Actually, it's called X now. All right, Elon, pick a name.
Yeah, X,
right.
But we still always say formerly. It's like Prince. Like it's like the symbol. We still say formerly known as.
I'm also I'm on IG and Facebook and TikTok. So you can see all the tour dates there. And real excited about this year, 2024. Get ready for more Tito Puente. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Tito. So as we start getting wrapped up here, there's a little bit of the segment that we do with all of our guests for the percussionists, drummers, musicians. It's called In 4 Beats or Less. So do we want to? Yeah. Do we want to? And we do want to talk about the timbales here after this.
Sure.
So we want to close in on that. So do we need do we need to get a metronome here?
You want a metronome?
No.
4 beats or less.
All right. So question number 1 here: in 4 beats or less, I ask all my guests this question: is who's on your Mt Rushmore of drummers or percussionists?
I love that question.
And now in 4 beats or less. So.
4 beats or less. Oh, my God. Neil Peart, Phil Collins, Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa.
Okay.
Yo, Monsters. Did I mention the Monsters?
Yeah, no, that's
I
it.
have to honorary mention Lars Ulrich, Metallica was one of my favorite, and of course Nico McBrain, Iron Maiden.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah.
Another South
Peart,
Florida. Nico's South Florida.
Nico, South Florida.
Yeah,
gotta go eat some ribs, baby.
Oh, that's right. You gotta go
Let me know where you're going. We're gonna go.
Yeah.
I wanna go eat
yes,
ribs.
yes. We may go after this.
4 beats or less. I guess that was 4. Yeah, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't give me the tempo.
There you go. That's it.
Is this a ballad? Dong, dong, and donna.
This is what. Yeah, perfect. I love it when somebody picks something sudden and says,
Yeah.
Well, what's the tempo? What's the
tempo,
BPM
man?
here? It's like, oh, good point. Good point. I've had some, and again, being so naive and not to think when I've talked to people outside the U.S. and I ask that question, they're like, well, what's Mount Rushmore? And I'm like, oh, shit.
Am I wrong of not saying my father? Whoops! Sorry, Dad.
But
Tito Puente, honorary mention.
I had a.
He has his own mountain.
Oh yeah, he's
his own mountain.
like the
volcano,
like
Everest.
What's like the Chief Crazy Horse where it's his own monument?
Yes,
that's it. Yes.
Yeah, like the Devil's Tower, Wyoming. Like that's Tito Puente. He was the forefathers.
Right.
He was the man.
Yeah,
that's right. There would be no Mount Rushmore without the king.
I had interviewed. I'm drawing a blank now. She was on a couple years ago. She's here in South Florida. She does a lot of taiko drumming. Her and her husband is part of like a taiko drumming, the Japanese drumming, right?
Yes.
They have a studio here in Broward. And I asked her that question, and she goes, well, it's my Mount Rushmore. I can have however many I want.
That's true.
So there you go. So
yes.
Yeah. So think about it that way.
Yes. Go figure. We've never been to Mount Rushmore. We're going this year. We're going to Montana. Is that Montana?
You gonna go up there and see Kevin Costner in Yellowstone and all that?
Yeah, we're going to North Dakota or South Dakota or something. I think later on this year.
So, there you go.
We'll
so
finally go
riding motorcycles, feeling like the Black Hill Mountains and all that.
I like motorcycles. Yeah, I used to ride. I had a scooter. I don't know. That's the largest mountain in the world. Oh, Mount Everest.
Mount Everest. Yeah.
Well, that's Tito Puente right there.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Mount Tito.
Mount Puente.
All right. So in question number 2, what's your favorite venue you've played at?
Sky Dome in Canada, Toronto, probably the largest venue. I think it was about 20,000+. I played on stage with my father, so that's why I remember that day so well, and it's on video. So nobody's really seen it, but I got to air that one. Other venues, Red Rocks, great place. Madison Square Garden, I did the Garden. Wow, I did an NBA game. There was the Knicks, and wow, there's so many. Where have we been, man? I got to look at him over. Some big stages we've been on. Well, Veracruz. Mexico, 150,000 people in Veracruz.
You played Dancing with Stars.
Not a stage.
No.
More like plastic levels, but definitely good platform. Yes. Dancing with the Stars. Yes, that was pretty big too. Yeah, we did a lot. Okay, I can tell you some strange ones.
Go for it.
We did a couple of churches, funerals. Where else, babe? It's a swinger boat party. A bunch of naked people running around.
All right, so that'll be part of like the after Tito hours.
We've done some really weird. I did a midnight thing where the lights were out. There was no lighting. We just want the ambiance, and we're playing in the middle of the dark. What else did we play? We played some weird, unusual. Well, the cruise ships ones, yeah. Well, we were in a couple of cruise ships and they were rocking pretty bad. I did a couple of concerts in the rain, lightning storms, death-defying, close to death type of events. The haunted ones. Somebody was playing the cowbell. We didn't know where it was coming from. What? There was nobody there. Yeah, haunted places. A lot of haunted places.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So. Sorry, that was like a really long beat.
No, yeah.
4 beats, sorry.
All right, so question number 3 here. And so watching you, like we talked about, watching you perform up close there and, watching your dad play, it's just, the stick work, and that's, I think, is always what I get. I love watching somebody's hi-hat work, right? How they're very precise on the hi-hat and movement on, especially on the timbales but, in considering that, is a lot of the foundation is around that jazz and most, when it comes to grip. So traditional or match grip?
Ooh, if I'm playing trap kit, I like match grip. If I'm playing rock, if I'm playing more pullback, air supply, easy foreigner music, I'll do traditional.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to do match grip if you're playing rock music.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's stronger. Ambidextrous, there's a plus.
Yeah.
You can play left and right. So
I know, growing up, it's like, trying to play, obviously.
crossing's weird.
Yeah.
But I did learn traditional through Sam Milano. So
Okay.
traditional definitely with the better music, actually, the more music that's conducive to jazz and all that. Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich, man. I mean, you're talking about that. I always watch Neil Peart, the way his precision in doing switching. The way he switches is just wow. I mean, master.
It's
the professor. We called him.
That's right. The professor.
Always be the
right?
professor.
Yeah, that's right. It's for sure. All right. So question number 4. And I don't know if you do a whole lot of social media, or you keep track of a lot of stuff, but is there any social media? Who's your social media drummer that you kind of are like, all right, it's entertaining or wow or whatever?
Oh, there's quite a few. I got this young kid out of plays identical to my father, named Wally El Timbalero. He's out there in San Francisco. Plays exactly like Tito Puente. Does the exact rudiments. I love watching him. My friend too. Inspirational because he never got to see Tito Puente. Didn't know who he was. Or I think he's from Colombia. Who else? Love watching Mike Portnoy. I mean, Mike Portnoy's incredible. I love watching him. Love watching Lars anytime he's doing something with Metallica.
Have you seen this guy? I don't know if he's in Spain or
This guy, Brazil.
Is it El Stampario?
The beard
guy with the cross.
Absolutely phenomenal. He's one of my favorites. I do follow him on TikTok. Does rolls with one hand.
Smoking
Amazing.
joints with one hand, smoking joint and playing one hand, and
sick. Sick. He does Oye Como Va. He does Celia Cruz songs. Amazing. He is one of my favorites.
Yeah, very cool. So, well, you made it through the rapid fire. So again, thanks. I've got a shirt for you. So again, all the alums, part of the alum family now. So Drums and Rums alums. It's funny. I interviewed Don Familaro, and he just loved the fact that I had all these rhyming words to it and all that. So Drums and Rums alum. But yeah, let's before we close out here is the Timbales here. This is anniversary.
So the LP company, Latin Percussion, which is owned by DW Drums out there in Oxnard, California, they last year was the 100th centennial of my late father, Tito Puente, born in 1923. So for 2023, they issued, I think it was 1,500, pardon me, right? 1,500. 2,000. There were 2,000 models made of the Tito Puente original timbales. These are the centennial models. So they have the original logo, which you left the plastic on there, man. You really left it. All right, these are like really brand new. I don't even think he played them, maybe once. Has the signature logo. These are the centennial signature cowbell, mambo bell, and the cha-cha bell, which also has the signature of Tito Puente as well. This is the Black Beauty bell, but they put it in almost like a nickel style. The difference between these timbales and the standard Tito Puente LP timbales, of course, is the logo and the lip. The bottom lip of these drums have a different sound when you hit them on the side. It's called cascara. It's got a little clave rhythm sound to it. So it has a very, very deeper and sharper sound when you're hitting the drum. This was a design made by Mr. Martin Cohen, who just celebrated his 85th year. He's having his birthday next week or something. So happy birthday, Marty. And the drums they only made 2,000 of these. What number you got, Gama? 30. He has number 30. I have the prototype, and I have 000 and I have 001. So I have three of them. One of them goes to Smithsonian. The other one, my mom, got to give it to Margie Puente, who's still with us. And then the other one, I think I have 001, the first one. But they are all the same. The brackets are a little bit different too because they have the screws on this side. They're just incredible sounding. And if you didn't get a pair, they are no longer made. They're limited edition. They only had 2,000. So I went online a couple of weeks ago, and I asked my buddy over there at LP, hey, is there any more left? Any more left? He goes, all the distributors got it. So it's in all the stores. The company itself took the mold. They put it away in a vault back in Philippines. That's where they make stuff. So now the mold is over there. When are you going to put out the next one? In what? another 100 years. And like, well, we're thinking about maybe like doing a 25th anniversary of these, or, you know, my father did some different derivatives of the drum itself. But if you go online, you could find a pair. They are expensive. They go for, I think, $1,000 or more. That's probably the most expensive timbales out there on the market. Next to, of course, you know, custom made, Chile or custom made Santana, or, you know, custom made drums. But yeah, if you go online and look for the Tito Puente Centennial model, you might find them. It's almost like they're like really like Easter eggs. You got to really look hard for them. But if you're a big fan, they're collector's model. I know Gama's not playing these, and I know he's saving them. He just has them for show. He's an avid timbal player, and I know he doesn't want to mess with these because these are our collector's item.
And it's special, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I'm glad he got it. He got a pair. Yeah. And I got him the bells too for him. He's like, they ran out of the bells. I said, don't worry, I'm going to get them for you. And I got some of the bells. The bells are still on sale because this model, they just consider it the Centennial model because it came out last year, but it is a model that they have as on the LP website. So you could get this one and this one too still in stores today. Okay. The drums are the hard part to get. Yeah, man. Cool stuff. Really cool stuff. This year we're celebrating not only that, but Tito Puente's, there's a few albums that came out in 1974, 1964, 1954. One of them is Cuban Carnival, came out in 1956. But before that, there was Mambo's Volume 1, Mambo's Volume 2. So every year we can celebrate Tito Puente. Yeah. And we decided, I decided, and the agents, of course, my agents, we wanted to celebrate the centennial of Tito Puente. My father was born April 20th, 1923. So we're going to keep celebrating all the way up until this April. We want to do the whole full year around the earth. So look out for these next couple of concerts because they're going to be centennial concerts where you have a big screen, photos, videos, exclusive stuff of Tito Puente. We're also doing a documentary series. It will be out by the end of hopefully by the end of this year. We've been kind of pushing it along. Hollywood's a lot of red tape, but we are now in pre-production now and ascertaining all the photos and videos and stuff. So it's really exciting time for the Puente family, the estate, and we're looking forward to 2024 with more.
That's right. There you go. So, Tito, again, I humbly appreciate you coming on the show here.
Did you press record?
Yeah. Whoops. And again, for those that hope, you listen to this episode, watch this episode, is again the history. There's so much here. It's very similar to Tito is like some of the rum guests I've had on, some of the families that were originally in Cuba and before Castro came, and and it's like we've all heard of Havana Club rum, right? I've interviewed some of the family from that, and it's like we're talking about history here, the family history, and your family is part of drum, percussion, and music history, and not just but music history, right? Yes. And being recognized and influenced many, like you said, a lot of today's pop stars, musicians, and so forth. And so again, thank you for coming on the podcast. So I thank Tito again, and thank you, Ray, here for coming to the studios there, and definitely check out the podcast there, Drums and Rums. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, like this video when we drop. Follow us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on all the socials. Yada yada. You know what it is. Give us a 5-star rating. That's how important. That helps other people see these episodes. I love, like I said, music. It's
brings us all together. It's a camaraderie. Yeah. And again, quote by my father: "Surround yourself with creative people, thus you will be creative." Encourage you guys to always be around drummers. Drummers be around drummers. Have that camaraderie, and always celebrate the music and life and legacy of kings and queens of this music, like Mr. Tito Puente. And of course, follow me on all my social media at Tito Puente Jr. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. I got a radio show on Sundays. Check that out on power787radio.com, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I talk about Tito Puente, play Tito Puente music. It's everything Tito Puente. And check out my hot sauce at Tito Puente Jr. Hot.com. Get yourself some shirts and CDs and music, and we will be recording new music and documentary and a whole lot more coming from the Puente camp. Excellent. Looking forward to it. Yeah. And 2024 is more. And Paul, I want to thank you personally.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the room. Thanks for the support, and thank you for having me on this podcast. Make sure you guys always rate these guys with a 5-star. I'm giving it a 5-star.
Excellent.
For
I
sure.
appreciate. All right, excellent. So, thank you all for tuning in. This is Paul with Where the Backbeats Meet Spirits. Have a great day, y'all. And we're out.
Oh, just hold it for about 10 more minutes. No, I'm just